Welcome to Sound Sagas. It's 2024, and it has been for like 20 days. But 2023 just passed. And what a doozy that was.
It went fast.
Yes. It was like January 2023 and then December 2023. And in that span, maybe 6 or 7 million albums came out. Maybe 8.
Maybe 8.
Yeah, a lot of new music. No shortage of things to talk about. But obviously the year in context and the year in like grand scope like puts in the framework what these albums mean, right? Like a lot.
I mean, we had the whole gamut. Interesting, milquetoast, challenging.
I mean, what is this post-COVID? Like, you know, is this like post everything kind of world we're entering? A lot of the music is changing, a lot of the world is changing, and we can only sit by and document and talk about what happens.
Yeah. Well, and live in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and experience it every day and. In sometimes bad ways. So
yeah, good and bad.
But I will say sitting down, even after a bad 2023 day, sitting down and exploring 2023 music was a constant recurrence of pleasures for me. Like, again and again, I found things that I was like, this sounds like you couldn't have released this last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, I kept coming back to things that seemed really interesting and still maintain that value throughout the year.
I know, yeah. That replay value is so golden, especially when things like preserve, for better or worse, part of the time that they came from. I think every year has this, but in 10, 20 years, we'll see more clearly what it was about 2023 music that helped preserve kind of the zeitgeist, right? Like what it feels like.
What do you think one of your most listened to albums in 2023 was?
Wormhole.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the new album by Wormhole. It's guttural, brutal death metal in the style of like hyper technical riffing and lots of complicated drumming and a lot of noise combined with very deep, very low, very like not projected but sort of summoned guttural utterances.
What was the album title? The band was Wormhole?
Band's Wormhole. The album title is called Almost Human, I think.
Almost Human.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me check my references here just to make sure I don't mix it up with 17 other albums. But yeah, there's a gulf between like what you consider like technical metal, where it's mostly about the what would you call it, the guitar calisthenics, or the ability to play. Well, Wormhole to me, and why I liked it so much, is that they sort of emulate the style of being very good at their instruments, and they are, but it's the vocal delivery and performance that sells it. Like, it's the vocals.
Yeah.
And how often do you hear someone say, I like guttural, brutal death metal because of the vocals? I mean, not often, but actually thinking about it, maybe more often than not.
I mean, that stands out, though.
It's sort of the defining characteristic, right? So, like, I listen to that again and again and again. Also, it's a very smooth album. Despite how I describe it. But yeah, Almost Human is the title of the album. Came out mid-2023.
Would you say it was comforting for you through that year? Or
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think anything about guttural, brutal, technical death metal could be comforting. Definitely cathartic in that, you know, it's bleak music. But there's beauty in the bleakness, which I always like to say about some of this music I listen to. Like,
yeah.
There's like a deft hand or a deft brush stroke to be painted with.
So it offers insight.
It does.
You could say. Yeah.
I don't know about lyrical insight. Like, it might not be through the lyrics, which...
Well, no, maybe primal insight. Like,
yeah.
Something undescribable.
It's more of an emotional...
intangible.
Yeah, more of an emotional feeling. Like, there is... At least in my experience, a warm, fuzzy wave when you hear something that just, and this goes for anyone who likes music, like, that checks all the boxes. Like, not to say that this band simply checks the boxes, and that's all they do.
No, that's an excellent way to say it.
Yeah, but they did check the boxes.
If things check the boxes, that's a big thing in and of itself.
It's a big thing, especially for people like us who have a lot of boxes in our repertoires, you know, right? We listen to a lot of music.
People.
Yeah. We are needy. I don't want to put us on a high pedestal, because absolutely not. No, I actually envy people who can just kind of enjoy music. But I I did find that my efforts in engaging with that album were well paid off. And every time I listened to it, it just felt like, how could it be so smooth?
I mean, I'm happy to hear that. I mean, how could it be so smooth? That's like, that should be your pull quote for that record.
Yes, I like that.
And also could be applied to Chuck Mangione. Like,
it could be applied to like really good scotch, like
anything. That's a great way to land.
It's a fine wine. I wish I could play it to you and grace your ears with the wonderful sounds of a man.
I think you should listen to it.
We should. I wish we could. I wish it wasn't copyrighted.
Oh no, you all should listen to it.
Oh, they should. Yeah, they should absolutely click it. No.
Yeah.
No, we've already heard it. But I'll hear it again. Yes, type right now. Whatever you're doing, keep this tab open. Make sure we're still talking. Like, don't put us away.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Listen to us on repeat.
Yeah.
And then open another tab or window.
Yep.
Listen to this.
Yep. Type in Wormhole, Almost Human, and you'll find it on Bandcamp. And I'm curious to what anyone who's never heard like anything heavier than Metallica or Megadeth or something, or like Rammstein maybe. I wonder how that kind of like, this is like a deeper cut, right? Like, you don't just happen across this band. I wonder what people who have completely fresh ears would make of this gentleman's vocal performance.
So would you recommend this band to anyone who's looking for something a little bit heavier than Rammstein or Metallica or Megadeth?
Like if it's your first foray into like the deeper world of underground metal, this would be a nice stopping point.
Yeah, I mean, that's
gets you pretty far. Gets you pretty far pretty quick. So
yeah,
it's a Sagas top tip, right? Listen to Wormhole. You'll be knowledgeable.
Sounds Sagas top tip.
What about you?
Is that what we called those top tips, or is there no?
No, I stole that from Top Gear, so we might get sued.
Okay, maybe. Well, we won't get sued, but
no.
What was it? We had a word for like Sound Saga's hot tips or something. Top tips.
I did say top tip because I did steal that from Top Gear, but Sound Saga's sound tip, maybe
something like that.
No, that's too easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah. I mean, to me, I guess the most listens, most impactful. I went back to an old album by the Postal Service because they did their first like reunion tour in a many number of years last year. Went to LA, saw them. It was awesome. But they also re-released their album with a bunch of B-sides and stuff. So that was super topical and cool to listen to. I mean, I've been a big fan of all of them for a long time. But the tour was extra gratifying because, as an older person, I guess, in like digital spaces, to see them perform, they're like kind of my next step. So like Ben Gibbard and Ginny Lewis have both had records out, when I was a teenager, before I was a teenager, and so they played Death Cab for Cutie songs, Postal Service songs, Ginny Lewis songs, and it was just like a huge explosion of cool music.
It's like a fucking smorgasbord of everything.
Yeah, it was just like eating it up.
Yeah.
And then they had the records come out. I mean, I'm wearing the hoodie right now for that concert. But yeah, I mean, that sustained me throughout the year. And then I found out they're touring again, coming into 2024. So going to see more of that this year. And I think they're getting a lot of young fans. Like Ginny Lewis had another record come out last year, Joy All.
Right, active like after 10 years or so, or whatever it was.
That came out.
Yeah, no one just comes back and to an empty stadium.
Well, I mean, she was opening for Harry Styles and like has a lot of young fans.
I was talking about Postal Service. Yeah.
But yeah, Postal Service, I mean, that band was defunct and now it's reunited and invigorated.
I almost thought you said Yngwie Malmsteen. I'm like...
That's what I was tripping into, because Yngwie had a course come out on Surefire. So I had to say and spell his name a lot.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah, Ginny Lewis had a record come out and was doing the Postal Service thing. Now she's back on a solo tour. Ben Gibbard is back with Death Cab for Cutie on their own tour, and they have new music as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just like a plethora of things to digest from them. this year.
Is it totally typical early 2000s? Like I'm talking like 2010s, 2020s, 2030s. Are we going to be in this age of constant like band is gone, but now band is back? Like, is that the norm?
I mean, people are going to start dying.
Yeah.
So I don't think so. I think.
Well, eventually, yeah, you can't come. Well, holograms. See, like
that's a big question.
Yeah, it's like, are we ending the death of celebrities by?
So
yeah,
I think there's a weird thing to spin that with. Like,
yeah.
So the Rolling Stones have been going forever.
Right.
That's one way to do it.
They are human skeletons now, and
yes,
it's obvious. Yeah.
And I mean, it sounds bad, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Postal Service, they do a show or a tour every 5 or 10 years. It seems like. Once people start dying, I don't know if holograms are going to work.
Right. Well, some artists will simply not agree to them.
Yeah, I think there'll be enough stuff in place to say like, you can't make a hologram of me and do this.
Yeah. There will be that, and people have already said, do not represent me in any way with holograms. Once I pass. Yeah.
But I do think the Rolling Stones model is going to retire, where it's like you have to do this forever.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone wants to do that.
No.
And like, you make different music when you're older, but it's not necessarily what you should be doing like the entire time. Like you shouldn't be doing the same thing.
All those years. You should always try to like. Well, it's hard to say what you should do as a musician, but like, isn't the music you make?
I also don't want to tell anyone what to do. So
yeah, you can always ask though. Like, isn't the music you make like an element or part of you as you are now or as you were? Like that'll change a year from now, 2 years from now. I think music changes because people change. Yeah.
And actually, that's a valid point. So if someone changes over that career and does different music, that's a totally different thing.
Right. Then simply reviving,
playing the same songs for 40 years,
that's where it gets
not valid.
Yeah, that's where it gets less like what's fresh in 2023 or any year, and what's just like even if it's charting and hitting hard, like it ain't fresh. Doesn't mean that people don't like it. Doesn't mean it's not good. But
and the better question is like, what does it mean to the person making it?
Right.
Like, if I were to ask, Mick Jagger, like, what do you think of the last 20 years worth of songs you put out?
Do you think
is that garbage or is that worthwhile?
Right. I guess the question is the response he gives you. Does he himself truly think that he gave you a canned response or a genuine response? Right.
Right.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's sort of the mystery or the mystique of like entering into the authenticity of the artist's space, because in this day and age, it's right to question who's authentic and who's not.
Oh, absolutely.
I think most people making music are pretty authentic because it's hard to make any sort of.
A lot of them are.
Yeah. You ain't making buku bucks making music unless you're one of the top,
Well, and I go back to Post Malone a lot, but Post Malone, like, understands music, writes music because he has to, and like I think that guy's gonna make music till he dies. Like, he's gonna be like a Willie Nelson type, where it's just like
a default for him. Like there's no other.
Yeah,
path.
This is what I do.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter if it's successful. It's great that it's successful now, but I think like Willie Nelson too. Like he will do that forever.
Yeah.
Like Willie Nelson is going to die soon.
He is the music.
But he is going to keep doing that until it's over.
I like that. I mean, it's neither good nor bad. I have deep appreciation and respect for anyone who's like, my point on this earth is to make this sound that pleases people and makes them feel something more than nothing.
Well, and not even that. I think it's more about my purpose on this earth is to get this thing out of me, and share it with people.
Okay, yeah.
Like to produce that sound that minimizes it to me.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I mean, feel free to disagree.
No, I think you're totally right. Yeah. And my question is like, is that harder to do these days than before?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's easier in some ways. It's easier to do it.
I think it's harder to do it.
Technical part of it.
And share it. I think it's easier to share it with people. Mm-hmm. I think it's harder to do it and actualize it.
Yes, it's harder to get their actual attention.
Well, no, it's harder to actualize it yourself.
Gotcha.
I mean, do you think that's true?
I think it is still harder to get people's attention just because of the glut of
Well,
information.
no, I mean, do you think it's harder to actualize it as an individual?
In this day and age?
Yeah.
It depends. For me personally, it probably would be than it would have been 10, 20 years ago. I can't say that for everyone, though.
Well, yeah, but I think that's, for me, that's the crux of it, is like, it is harder to actualize creation that is worthwhile.
Yes, that's where that's the linchpin. Yeah.
It is easier to disseminate anything you create.
Yeah.
Which is great.
You can make something pretty easily. It can be pretty good pretty easily, and people could pretty much like enjoy it and listen to it. But to have a name people remember, or to like bring someone to tears, like with your music,
and to make that true to yourself.
Yeah,
like, I think people have a less hard concept of the self.
Right. I guess what you're saying is like to not do that on purpose, but to do that because you're just creating what you know and think and
because
feel.
You're trying really hard to create that.
Yeah, like I always say to myself, would this person be creating music in a vacuum? Like if no one listened to it, no one bought it, and there was no market for it, would they still make it? And for many artists, the answer is yes. Despite what non-musicians might think that's crazy, but like you got to think of it like an impulse or like an urge.
Well, I mean, there was a name for people like that before.
Yeah.
Outsider artists.
Yeah.
So now I think outsider artists are the inside artists.
Right.
So to speak. Like everyone who's making art and has any sort of reach on a platform is going to put it out there. Mm-hmm. Or it should. Mm-hmm. Or may try to.
Yeah.
I mean, there are different levels to that too. But what I'm saying is an outsider artist now is so far from the fringe.
I got you.
Like before it was like, people like Daniel Johnston, who he has like a cult following among a lot of musicians and made a lot of songs that people have covered. Mm-hmm. But someone like that now, I mean, they might be on streaming services. It's a different environment and ecosystem, I think.
It's a completely different ecosystem, and that's like the structure of how music works as an economy, but also like a collective of artists and meaning-making individuals who are constantly creating and sharing and disseminating. Like you start changing some of the formulas and some of the agents in that system, and the whole product is different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we still have music. It's still music, but the way it's made, the way it's listened to, and the type of people who listen to what have all radically changed.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like, we're not that old in our lifetime. Like, which is, and we're like not even halfway to 40, and we can chart, like, in the last 20 years of our experience in music, like, changes. So, I mean, maybe that's been true for every generation coming, and, like, change kind of sneaks up on you.
I don't know that it has been, though.
I don't think so. I think change has gotten faster.
Yeah, I'm open to not being different than the last generation, but I think things are moving faster.
I think things are moving faster, and I think the acceleration and the speed are both factors unto themselves. The faster we move, the faster we change, the more different things get, even though they're already getting different.
Yeah.
So, I wonder what kind of what kind of impermeable like jelly flux world we'll enter once everything is nothing and nothing is everything, right? And like music is no longer.
Well, let's ground that a little more.
Do we lose reality?
Let's ground that a little more, because I was going to ask.
Let's land that plane.
Where do you see that falling next? Because we are in an age of next.
Yeah.
Going back to Post Malone, like
that's hard.
He got famous on SoundCloud. SoundCloud doesn't matter anymore.
It's $1 million question.
So what's next?
$1 million question. Quantum music.
What does that mean?
Don't know yet. When they invent it, we'll know.
I'll tell you what I think's next.
Yeah.
I think niche markets are going to find a way to collaborate better.
Okay.
Things like Bandcamp are going to not be bought by bigger entities. And there's going to be an injection of like a lot of like micro environments that people can share and collaborate on.
Right, like an economy of smaller economies, right?
Yeah.
Like there's layers to this, as opposed to just be one massive sort of
Yeah, I don't know what
operation.
products,
Yeah.
what made up names that's going to be,
Right.
or how that lives, but I think that's how it moves forward, you know.
It's a positive outlook.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the way it's going. It's
Yeah.
happening organically already.
We are trending toward like this. We're dispersing the authority within music. You know, in old structures, authority, like it was like a top down sort of thing.
Yeah, it was labels.
And now it seems to be like a crowdsource or crowd engaged, like what the people want filters upward.
Yeah, it's people searching
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to people telling people
Exactly.
to be searching.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of microenvironments that could be made to like make it easier to access those types of musics, or like those creative people that are engaged.
I think that's a Saga sound tip. Is that
sounds like a sound tip.
the way of the future of thinking about music is not in an essence of like people are told what they like, or people are prescribed the type of music that the machine sort of generates. The machine is simply reacting to what people's input across Google, Facebook, socials, conversations that your phone listens to.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't even think that. I think the machine moves slowly enough where we can be more reactive than
Right.
it can be.
Okay. Where people can like
People can affect the way the machine thinks and moves.
absolutely. I hope that's the new way.
I mean, I don't know, but
yeah.
that seems like how it's going.
It doesn't preclude any bad things though. Like that could very well happen, and bad things could also happen at the same time.
I mean, bad and good are binary, you know.
Yeah.
You don't really need to think in those terms.
Well, generally I think of less music as bad and less people interested in music as bad. And I hope that's not the case.
I mean, to some degree, things just happen.
Yeah.
So we'll let them happen how they happen. But
That's true. I guess like I said, like, you know, if less people listen to music, that's not necessarily going to spell, let's say, the end of the earth.
Oh.
Yeah.
It could be a more engaged group.
Right.
It could be a less engaged group, and then we need to have more creative individuals come into music, you know? Like it's all ebbs and flows.
Yeah. I mean, music changes too, just like the way people listen to it and the way people are who listen to it. Like, it always makes me, to ask the question, of course, like, what's the future model? Like, what's the way or the sound of it all? Let's say 30 years from now, like, if 5,000 random people guessed, maybe one got it right, they'd be very lucky. But like, it's hard to like, that's the $1 million question. Like I said, like, it's hard to know.
I don't think I want to know that either. Like, I don't think I'm saying the future way is this. I'm just saying this is where I think it's going.
Right.
The future way, that's kind of like too abstract. And it's unimportant because we won't be there.
No, until we are. But then we won't be like, wow.
Well, I mean, we'll be dead.
Oh, you mean like, okay, probably, yeah.
Like, I think thinking about how we affect this immediate future is more important.
No, obviously, like living in the present and using and experiencing art in a present state of mind,
right,
is, I think, not the only way to do it, but it's a very good way to do it.
I mean, I think a present state of mind is like a key.
I think everyone agrees. Like, be present.
Well, you'd be surprised.
Well, speaking of everything is nothing and nothing is everything, there's a band called Nothingness, and their album Supraliminal is what I'd consider a very esoteric dive into like nasty technical death metal. Like, I consider it the real shit. I mean, it's like
so good, nasty technical.
Good. Like, when you talk about death metal, there's like good and like in the way that like Frosted Flakes are good, like, or McDonald's is good. Like, yeah, of course it's good. They've scientifically engineered that shit to be fucking delicious. Like, but there's also
although the dichotomy is that it is garbage.
Yeah, it is garbage. It's like garbage, but it's good, right? But then there's like stuff that's good that you like, well, it looks cheaper or underproduced or looks like garbage, but then you listen to it and like, it's the real deal. Like, it's like, it's the essence that you've been looking for in a certain style of music. It can be found in that style of music.
Right.
And bands like Nothingness do it. But I thought of Nothingness because of everything is nothing, nothing is everything. So the reality of our world today. Taylor Swift.
I mean, actually, I wanted to talk about the band Nothing
Mm.
because I saw
Good band.
them. Well,
Except,
I thought so
yeah,
too.
Yeah, until you saw them. Yeah.
Until I saw them. They actually had a pretty underwhelming performance. I mean, I don't want to naysay people on here, but yeah, I don't know what didn't hit, but the live performance of
happens,
them
yeah.
didn't hit.
I mean, one of my favorite bands, Wolves in the Throne Room, I saw first time an Empty Bottle, blew my socks off. Like, I literally looked for my socks. They were gone.
Yeah.
Disintegrated or, some kind of destruction. Also killed my wife.
Oh, wow.
She fucking slayed by that show.
Hurtful.
Couldn't stand up. She couldn't stand up. I mean, we had done a lot of marijuanas and everything, but no, it was perfect. But then I saw them again at a festival, and the sound was bad. And I don't think it was their fault, but also they just seemed very messy.
Outdoor events are bad.
This was indoor. This was an indoor festival.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
it was like a regular, I guess the show it just happened to have a lot of shows at once, kind of a festival in nature, but...
I mean, I did see Nothing at Lincoln Hall. So one of the best sound venues in the city.
It just didn't hit.
It was bad.
It's fair enough. Fair enough.
They did a bad job, and I'm not proud of them.
Well, they're called Nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you expected.
But no, Taylor Swift in 2023.
For anyone who even has a remote awareness of music must be aware that Taylor Swift went on a incredibly massive tour of the entire world last year.
A kill 'em all tour, you could say.
Like literally, I think one of the biggest commercial successes in music. Ever, yeah. And she's the first, correct me if I'm wrong, self-made musician billionaire who's a woman.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, Beyonce or her.
Mm-hmm. And obviously how you crunch the numbers on who has more money. But the point stands, an incredibly successful, like, round of things that could have gone very bad. Like, some tours go bad.
Right. And to her credit, like, she is in with A-list artists, indie artists, people across the board.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hear bad things about Taylor Swift.
I mean, they're out there if you look, but they're not the kind of criticisms.
Not from industry.
Yeah,
people.
They're not criticisms that could be levied with any sort of real level of
metrics.
Criticism. Yeah. If you wanted to criticize Taylor Swift, you'd have to like dig into like sociology and like popularity and those sorts of things, and that's not really what the critics are talking about.
Still, though, to me, that is crazy to have that kind of like rep.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite bands, The National, the Desner brothers, their guitarists, like produce and record her guitars, which is wild to me. Like finding someone who you just like to work with and want to collaborate on that level. Bon Iver, she did the same thing with him. Bon Iver, I don't know how he pronounces it, but
I've always said Bon Iver, but sometimes when I read it, I say Bon Iver.
Yeah, but I mean, she's collaborated with him. Like, I don't know. She seems to have a scope of like, hey, I understand being this big is important, but collaborating with people that makes sense for me makes sense too.
I think everyone in their right mind would like to think if I were suddenly that big, I would try to do the right thing, right? It's not all about being big. It's like...
And not even the right thing.
It's like welcome to the world I'm sort of helping create.
Well, like elevating other people.
Right.
Like the National, the Desners were trying to elevate other people too. Like Sharon Van Etten came out of their group. Like she was a backup singer. I know they've worked with Angel Olsen and people like that. So I don't know. I think the trend of other artists lifting up each other is a good one to proliferate.
Yeah, I think it's also a shout in the face of like sort of the way we're trained to think of our lives as inherently competitive. Like, why? Like, I don't think anyone making art should compete with each other. Like, it's not a competition in any case. Like, it's.
I mean, I do understand the mentality of like, if we are in the same space, we are competitors. Mm-hmm. But if you're in this collaborative sort of mindset, you lift each other up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
it's sort of the idea of like working together. You both can make more money than you'd both make fighting each other for whatever you could get. Right.
Yeah. I mean, a good idea lifts everyone else up.
It does. Yeah.
So
But speaking of the
on that note,
yeah, go ahead.
She had this hugely successful tour.
Yes.
Probably the most successful tour of any living artist or dead one.
You were telling me you walked by a movie screening of the tour.
Yeah,
How far removed could you be?
So I was in LA
Yeah.
for the Postal Service show at the Hollywood Bowl, and she had her premiere of a movie of her tour at the Chinese Theater, and there was a line a block long for that.
Like if you're going meta and like doing movies of the tour, or even like TVs of the movie, like, and people are still lining up, you have something, you've done something big. Yeah.
I mean, we all know this.
Yeah.
But it's insane.
It is insane.
The impact of Taylor Swift in 2023, I mean, like, she did it.
Yeah. I think
whatever she was trying to do, she did it. I think.
As someone, I don't listen to Taylor Swift. Like, the music, when it hits my ears, does not... I mean, I've been talking about brutal death metal all episode. Like, it's not my style of music, but I have such appreciation for someone who can speak such complex language that all music is to so many people, and they all line up. And, like, how do you find that one common message? How do you find that one common sound? Right? That's the hardest thing to ever do.
It's a feat.
I mean, anyone with really good chops and some good riffs and maybe some beer and weed and some tattoos because they listen to heavy metal and like plays death metal, like I will enjoy it, like, right? But find specific interests and nail those, that's one thing. But to find a broad appeal and then just like make it even bigger is
and also have broad appeal and make good music too.
Yes. Like music that people like. Well, when I consider good music, I try not to say, do I think it's good? I try to say, do people find actual meaning in this? Right.
Well, and is it well crafted?
Yes. Like, yeah. Like, is it I'm trying to find the word. It's not just thrown together. It's cared for.
Well cared for. Like, in all these collaborations too. Like, the Desners are huge guitar players. Like, I mean, if I can get Aaron Dessner to play on a song I was making, I would do it in a heartbeat. Like, but she just has this talent for collaboration as well as like her own talent.
Right.
I mean, this is not to like downplay Taylor Swift, which I would never do.
How could you?
I mean, hands aloft. But no, I mean, she has a talent for collaboration, business, all this stuff that like makes it work together.
I think overall the big message from Taylor Swift is that music is not dead.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, we know that, you and I know that, but there's plenty of people who are sick of the same old.
I mean, the people saying music is dead are the same people that were saying guitar is dead like 5 years ago.
That's true. Yeah.
That there are people who don't want to see a creative energy be productive.
Right. But when it happens so big,
don't understand that creative energy doesn't always produce.
Right.
Like, you could spend 20 years making your magnum opus and no one gets it and no one wants to buy it until you're dead.
No. We're talking this conversation enters like the X Factor level, the almost
like long games.
Yeah, almost like untouchable element to specifically Taylor Swift. That's something that the way I describe it is that she is so musical. Like she breathes, eats, and sleeps music, like more than any of us could. Like, do you see what I mean? Like,
I don't know if I agree with that though.
Well, her name is like Taylor. I mean, like her identity is part of this
she's woven
this
the
massive
fabric
representation of what music is for all people.
Yeah.
Right? Like she stands there, and that's her name in front of that.
But I think she has those qualities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she eats, breathes, and sleeps it.
Yeah, I don't mean to be so exaggerative, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah.
I have deep respect, even though it's not the type of music I listen to, for someone who is so thoroughly versed in the ability to communicate through music. That blows my mind. Yeah.
No, it's a talent.
Yeah. I mean, across the world, across cultures, like people who are completely different.
Yeah, I mean, the only similar type comparison I can think of off the top of my head is like Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean?
Yeah.
You mean like the British
comedian?
Yeah, yeah.
Rowan Atkinson.
as far as like universal appeal or something?
As far as reach.
Oh,
Like,
reach, yeah.
like to be Mr. Bean is universal. Like that physical comedy.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to like downplay Taylor's music in any way.
No, you're not
just
making
saying,
that
like,
direct comparison. You're just, yeah.
Whatever nerve or thing that hits is like universal.
Yeah.
So I think to be that kind of talent takes a certain person.
We always say that to write good music, you have to be your most human self, right? You have to be your most self and like work with the music not as a product or as a commodity or as like an economic search or interest or anything, but as like a personal thing.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
tapping at your core.
Exactly. And for some people that's a very specific thing. Some people it's very general, but for very few people is that like does that feedback loop then get generated where it's like
Right.
she feeds this personal like this need or desire to create music and she does it, but then the world just like keeps feeding her, right? It's like more. And like anyone in her shoes, she's just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do the biggest thing anyone could ever do in this world of music. And that's
Yeah, and actually,
yeah.
that's a good segue to Andre 3000, his first record in many, many years since Outkast and Big Boy. I mean, he made this like super weird, super expressive experimental album with like flutes, and it really hit the mark.
Is this shit like avant-garde?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he has enough influence already just by being who he is that he was able to push this sort of weird avant-garde music into like the mainstream.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I don't even know if there's a precedent for like what kind of music he was making, but it's a really awesome record that was just completely straight from the heart. Like,
yeah. Is it sort of one of those where you hear it, like you just know?
Oh,
As
yeah.
a music lover,
Big time.
you just like...
And
Yeah.
for casual listeners to it,
Right?
I think it hits. I mean, kind of in that same way that Taylor Swift does, where it's like, this is universally like good.
Yeah. It's so hard to like consider objective facts in music criticism, but when you have millions of people like clamoring to get into your show,
Yeah.
you're not going to argue with each one of those people.
No, and the Andre 3000 album was a little bit different, where like
Yeah.
there might not be a live version of it that works,
Right.
but this record that he made really works.
Yes.
Like he really did a good job of like coming back out here.
Even I heard about it in my far removed, death and doom metal circles. Like these people, even in like niche scenes that generally kind of sometimes reject other spaces of music or even mainstream spaces of music, once you see those people even saying there's definite respect here, then you have to know like, yes.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's
bridge that gap. Yeah.
that's being a true musician
Yes.
too. Like finding where there is a pocket to learn something.
Yes.
Because there is always something to learn from someone else.
Oh my God. Yeah. If you don't believe that, then you're not, then good luck.
Yeah, you're not doing
yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's a good way to put it. That is some of the actual work of making music is learning.
Yeah. I
from
mean,
others.
good
Like-
luck and goodbye is what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people take learning as like a passive activity, but once you hit a certain age, it just isn't. You have to actively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you should always be learning is a firm belief I have.
Oh, I
But
know. That's not a Sound Saga sound tip. That's Sound Saga's, you must do this.
Hashtag life
Yes,
tip.
Yeah. You must keep learning. If you stop learning,
Yeah,
you will be
unsubscribe.
upset. Yeah. Have you stopped learning? Just get out of here.
Unsubscribe. Yeah. Get out of here. We don't want you.
Oh, man. I love that we can talk about, Wormhole and Taylor Swift and sort of like, I mean, two different, like one no one knows about, completely unknown, totally off genre music, kind of hidden by the wayside, I would say underappreciated, even though I don't blame anyone for not wanting to listen to a guy like gutturally belch the whole time, even how impressive it is.
I mean,
And how, in my
hopefully this
opinion,
makes some more people
aesthetically
listen to
pleasing
it.
it is. Yeah. But at the same stroke, like Taylor Swift, like, don't you see the world I'm not saying that you don't. I'm saying rhetorically, like, don't you see the gifts we've given ourselves as humans as far as music?
yeah. And the value. in
Any
this
level
sort of
you
thing.
want, exactly. Any level you want to access, you can find that value, right? Like you will find artists that don't give you that value, and that's fine. But you will never not find someone, right?
Right.
There's something for everyone, and I truly do believe that, even though I can't prove it.
Oh, absolutely.
But, yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's...
But if anything makes that more
proved.
clear is that Taylor Swift showed the world, like, hey, buddy, you want to see how it's done? You want to see how it's done? Yeah.
Hey, y'all,
Yeah.
you want to see music being made?
Yeah, that's how it's done. And, like, we all stood by and were very impressed.
Oh, for a lifetime.
I was happy. When I read about that tour being a massive success and that she gave huge bonuses and tips to people and, like, that all the fans were like, this was amazing and the show was great. I'm like, it can be done at scale.
If the biggest complaint is that you can't get tickets for a show, that's the best complaint you can have.
Well, it wasn't the whole online buying thing all huge.
No, I mean, and she and Robert Smith slapped Ticketmaster in the face.
That was the thing. Like Ticketmaster tried to do some paperwork.
Those companies don't work at scale.
No.
Which she proved and the Cures proved.
No.
And they need to do some remodeling.
Yeah, because they probably didn't realize what they were sort of up against or kind of coming up to as far as the popularity.
I don't think they cared, but I think they care now more.
Yeah. Well, they care now because they know they can make more money if they do a better job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole debacle. That's like, well,
that's
with all the great music of 2023, we also have like Ticketmaster and and like show prices, and we can name a bunch of other things that are kind of stinking up our realm. But all told, we'll survive as long as we have the music we came for. So, like, subscribe, engage. I think engage is the word we tell people. Right?
Yeah, engage. Give us some ratings.
Yep.
Do you like this? Do you not like this?
You can hit those buttons underneath the video to any of them.
Yeah. Just poke them.
Well, what we really want to say is we appreciate you. We have good things in store this year. We had a good year last year listening to so much music. We can't wait to talk more about it and share it and just like
absolutely
be excited about it. As you can tell, we get giddy about this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Keep listening, keep watching, keep subscribing.
Yeah. All right. Peace, everyone.
We'll
Cheers.
see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey man, what you doing by myself? If I tell you what, boy, I say, hey man, what you doing by myself? It's snatch. I say, hey man, what you doing by myself? A big fatty titty white boy. I say, hey man, what you doing by myself? It's snatch.